slash woman.
Oh, now, don't listen to him, Phoebes, all right? I think it's...
There isn't.
Did you ever think you knew everything about Friends, only to find out this 1990s classic still hides a few weird secrets? Behind the laughter and coffee cups, Friends was a snapshot of how we lived, loved, and joked our way through the decade. But after all these years, how much of it did we really notice? The famous orange couch that became the heart of Central Perk almost never made it to the set. When the production team was scouting props for the coffee house, they discovered the worn, vintage couch sitting forgotten in a corner of the Warner Bros. Studio basement. Instead of ordering a new piece or renting one, they dragged the couch out, cleaned it up, and decided it was perfect. Its slightly faded color and cozy feel gave Central Perk the warmth and familiarity that defined the show's atmosphere. The couch became more than just furniture. It was where the characters bonded, argued, and laughed for 10 years. Every major moment, from Ross and Rachel's first big argument to Chandler's awkward jokes, seemed to happen on that couch. Over time, it became one of the most recognizable pieces of television history. Fans visiting the Warner Bros. Lot today can still see the couch proudly displayed, preserved as a symbol of the show's charm. What started as a random basement find ended up being one of the most iconic visuals of the 1990s. It is funny to think that television magic sometimes begins with a bit of dust and luck. The joyful fountain sequence that opens every episode looks carefree, but filming it was anything but comfortable. The cast was called to the shoot at 4 in the morning, long before the sun came up, to capture the perfect lighting. The water was freezing, and the Los Angeles air was unexpectedly cold that night. None of them had expected to spend hours splashing, dancing, and pretending to have fun while shivering through take after take. Between shots, they wrapped themselves in blankets, trying to stop their teeth from chattering. Lisa Kudrow later joked that it felt like frostbite disguised as friendship. Even so, the chemistry among the 6 of them made the scene work. What you see on screen really was laughter through discomfort. The fountain itself was not even in New York City. It was a Warner Bros. Lot creation inspired by classic Manhattan fountains. Despite the tough conditions, the final sequence turned out so well that it became one of television's most famous intros. The song "I'll Be There For You" and that splash of water together became an instant promise of comfort, humor, and nostalgia. Behind the smiles, though, it was teeth-clattering cold the entire time. Before Friends became Friends, it went through a string of strange working titles that could have changed how we remember it. In early development, the creators pitched it as Insomnia Cafe, meant to focus more on late-night conversations than coffeehouse life. Later, it became Across the Hall, emphasizing the relationships between 2 apartments. Eventually, it was temporarily titled 6 of 1, which somehow sounded both serious and forgettable. The studio and writers went back and forth trying to find something simple but meaningful. When someone suggested Friends Like Us, the team finally started getting closer to the right tone. By the time filming began, it was shortened simply to Friends, a title that turned out to be perfect in its simplicity. The word summed up everything the show represented: connection, chaos, and shared moments in early adulthood. Imagine trying to tell someone, "My favorite show is Insomnia Cafe." It just does not have the same ring to it. That one final choice gave the series its lasting identity and made it one of the easiest to remember titles in television history. Sometimes the simplest word carries all the meaning you need. Before Friends even aired, Jennifer Aniston's role as Rachel Green almost never happened. She was already committed to another CBS sitcom called Muddling Through, where she played a completely different character. When the creators of Friends wanted her, there was a real risk that the other show would tie her up for years. The producers had to take a gamble and cast her anyway, knowing that if Muddling Through became successful, she might have to leave. Luckily, that show was canceled after only a few episodes, freeing Aniston to become Rachel, and television history was made. At first, she worried that Friends would never work. The cast were all unknowns, and ensemble comedies were a tough sell in the mid-1990s. But by the end of the first season, Rachel Green had become one of the most iconic characters on television. Aniston later said it felt like fate stepping in at just the right time. If Muddling Through had lasted even one season longer, we might never have seen the Rachel haircut, the coffeehouse banter, or the love story that defined an era. When Bruce Willis appeared on Friends as Paul, the father of Ross's girlfriend, fans thought it was just another big-name cameo. But behind the scenes, it all happened because of a playful bet. Matthew Perry and Willis had worked together on The Whole 9 Yards, and during filming, Perry bet that their movie would hit #1 at the box office. Willis did not believe it would. When it actually did, he agreed to honor the bet by appearing on Friends, for free. True to his word, Willis donated his entire salary to charity. What made the story even better was how effortlessly he fit into the Friends universe. His character's tough exterior hiding emotional awkwardness was a perfect match for the show's humor. Viewers loved his scenes with Jennifer Aniston, especially when his calm persona cracked under embarrassment. It became one of the most memorable celebrity guest roles in the series. Few people realized that it all started with two co-stars joking around on a movie set. A simple bet turned into television gold, and a good deed that made fans like Bruce Willis even more. Phoebe Buffay's guitar became one of her most lovable quirks, but Lisa Kudrow did not share her character's enthusiasm. When the show began, the producers hired a coach to teach her how to play properly. After just one lesson, Kudrow realized she hated it. The chords were hard, her fingers hurt, and she found the whole process frustrating. Rather than fake complex songs, she went to the writers with a solution. Let Phoebe be bad at guitar. The writers loved the idea, and it completely shaped the character. Suddenly, Phoebe's odd, clunky strumming and offbeat lyrics became part of the charm. That is how Smelly Cat was born, a deliberately simple tune that turned into a fan favorite. Kudrow once said that if she had learned real guitar, Phoebe would have lost her innocence and awkward magic. Instead, her three-chord wonder style made every performance hilarious. Sometimes, imperfection becomes the heart of the joke. Lisa Kudrow may have dreaded guitar practice, but it ended up creating one of television's most endearing running gags. Sharp-eyed fans may have noticed a quiet change between early and later episodes of Friends. At first, Monica's apartment door was labeled with the number 5, even though the view from her window clearly showed a high-floor cityscape. When the creators realized the mismatch, they changed the number to 20. Chandler and Joey's apartment also changed, from number 4 to number 19, to keep the building's numbering consistent. It was a small detail, but it mattered for the show's realism. New York apartments have always been a big part of its charm, and little things like that helped make the world feel believable. The apartment itself was more than a set. It became almost a character of its own, a warm, lived-in space where friendships grew. Fans loved how that purple door, with its yellow frame around the peephole, symbolized everything about the show. Quirky, familiar, and welcoming. Even after the number changed, the magic stayed the same. It is funny how one little adjustment on a door could make the entire world of Friends feel just a bit more real. The episode The One Where No One's Ready became an instant fan favorite because of its unusual format. Instead of jumping between locations, the entire story takes place in real time inside Monica's apartment. Ross is desperate to get everyone dressed and ready for a big event, but every character faces their own hilarious mini-crisis. Joey and Chandler fight over a chair, Rachel cannot decide what to wear, and Phoebe ends up with hummus on her dress. The tension builds minute by minute, creating one long, perfectly timed piece of comedic chaos. Filming it was tricky because everything had to happen in order, almost like a stage play. The cast loved it because it felt intimate, just 6 friends in one room, feeding off each other's timing and energy. The episode showed how little the show needed to be funny. Just the characters, their quirks, and a clock ticking down. The One Where No One's Ready became proof that the simplest setup could create pure comedy gold. It is one of the best examples of how Friends turned everyday moments into unforgettable television. Gunther, the quiet barista with the bleached hair and hopeless crush on Rachel, was never supposed to be a recurring character. In the beginning, James Michael Tyler was just an extra hired for the coffeehouse scenes. But when the crew realized he actually knew how to operate the espresso machine, they kept him around. Slowly, the writers began giving him lines, and over time, Gunther became part of the show's heartbeat. His deadpan delivery and lingering stares turned him into a running joke that fans adored. Tyler once said he dyed his hair bright blonde by accident the night before filming, but the producers loved it so much they made it part of the character. Gunther's quiet presence in the background gave Central Perk a real sense of continuity, as if someone was always keeping things running behind the chaos of the main group. By the end of the series, he had appeared in over 150 episodes, more than any other supporting character. Not bad for a guy who just wanted a part-time gig behind a fake espresso bar. Marcel, Ross's pet capuchin monkey, quickly became a fan favorite, but behind the scenes, he was more trouble than he looked. The monkey, whose real name was Katie, often missed cues, got distracted by the studio lights, and needed multiple handlers to keep her focused. David Schwimmer, who played Ross, admitted that working with Marcel was far from easy. He joked that Marcel would mess up takes by running off or staring into the cameras. What looked adorable on screen sometimes took hours to film. The production eventually phased Marcel out, not because fans disliked him, but because the stress of working with a live animal was too high. Schwimmer later said he was relieved when Ross had to give Marcel away. Still, Marcel's short run left a big impression. The scenes of Ross bonding with his mischievous pet added warmth to his early storyline and became part of Friends folklore. Ironically, what caused headaches behind the scenes helped make Ross's character even more relatable. Everyone loves their pet, until the pet decides not to cooperate. Few moments in television history show unity, like what happened behind the scenes of Friends. Early on, the 6 cast members, Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, Matthew Perry, and David Schwimmer, were paid very differently depending on when they joined and how their characters were written. But by season 3, Schwimmer and Kudrow suggested a revolutionary idea: negotiate together as one. The studio resisted, but the actors stood firm, knowing their power came from their chemistry and equality on screen. It was not just a demand for more money, it was about fairness and friendship mirroring their fictional lives. By season 10, they had successfully secured $1 million per episode each, making television history. Their decision reshaped how ensemble casts negotiated pay, setting a new industry standard for equality and solidarity. They proved that collective strength could outshine even network executives' expectations. More importantly, it showed that Friends was not just about the show. It was about 6 real people who believed they were stronger together than apart. It is one of the rare cases where Hollywood teamwork paid off both on and off the screen. Friends was known for its infectious laughter, much of which came from the live audience watching each episode as it was filmed. The studio setup was designed like a small theater, allowing hundreds of fans to react naturally to jokes, flubs, and bloopers. The actors said the live crowd's laughter gave them real energy, helping them deliver their lines with better timing. But not every scene worked well with an audience. For moments like Ross and Rachel's breakups or Chandler and Monica's emotional talks, the producers cleared the studio completely. They did this to avoid uncomfortable giggles during tense or heartfelt scenes. Without an audience, the atmosphere became quieter and more focused, allowing the actors to dive deeper into their performances. Lisa Kudrow once said filming those scenes without laughter felt like performing in a vacuum. The silence could be eerie, but it was necessary to preserve the emotion. When those episodes aired, the impact was undeniable. Fans felt every heartbreak as if it were real. It is a subtle detail, but that decision helped keep Friends balanced between comedy and heart. Behind the laughter, the show knew exactly when to stay quiet. It is hard to imagine Friends without its famous claps and upbeat theme song, but the music we know today almost never existed. In early planning, the producers wanted a familiar tune to match the show's youthful optimism. Their first choice was "Shiny Happy People" by R.E.M., a catchy song about friendship and joy. It fit the vibe, but not perfectly. Warner Brothers decided to take a chance on something original, and that is how "I'll Be There For You" was born. Written by Michael Skloff and Ali Willis and performed by the Rembrandts, The song captured the humor, struggle, and loyalty at the heart of Friends. The now iconic hand claps were added later, inspired by how the cast literally clapped between takes during rehearsals. When the song was released as a single, it unexpectedly climbed the charts, becoming a 1990s anthem. What started as a television jingle became a global hit played at weddings, parties, and karaoke bars for decades. It is a reminder that the right song can define an entire generation. Friends taught us that sometimes the best moments come when you create instead of borrow. For 10 years, Courtney Cox played Monica Geller, the heart of the group, the organizer, and the one who held everyone together. Yet, despite her energy, comedic timing, and emotional range, she never received an Emmy nomination. Every other main cast member did. Fans and critics alike have long debated why. Some speculate that Monica's role as the straight character, grounding the chaos around her, made her brilliance less flashy. Others believe the competition in comedy at the time was simply too fierce. Still, her castmates often praised her as the show's glue, the one who kept everyone sharp both on set and in real life. Lisa Kudrow even dedicated her 1998 Emmy win to Cox, calling her the best team player anyone could have. Though the awards never came, Courtney Cox's legacy is undeniable. Monica Geller remains one of television's most beloved characters, her perfectionism and big heart perfectly balanced. Awards fade, but her impact, every laugh, every iconic "I know," still resonates with audiences worldwide. Sometimes recognition comes not from trophies, but from the millions who still quote your lines today. Before Phoebe Buffay strummed her guitar in Central Perk, Lisa Kudrow was already playing a waitress named Ursula Buffay on Mad About You. When Friends started, both shows aired on NBC, and producers realized it could be funny and convenient to make them the same person. Rather than pretend they were unrelated, they made Ursula Phoebe's twin sister, giving the writers endless comedic possibilities. The decision added another layer to Phoebe's eccentric backstory, turning what could have been a continuity headache into one of the best running gags in sitcom history. Kudrow said filming both roles was tricky because it required shooting two versions of the same scene and editing them together. She would act as Phoebe, then change costumes and perform as Ursula against a stand-in. The result was seamless and hilarious, especially in episodes where the twins clashed over their totally opposite personalities. Ursula was cold, selfish, and oblivious, while Phoebe was kind and free-spirited. The connection gave Friends one of its most memorable recurring jokes and proved Lisa Kudrow could carry two sitcom worlds on her shoulders at once. Fans who paid close attention to Joey and Chandler's apartment might have noticed the Magna Doodle hanging on the back of their door. What most people do not know is that it changed almost every single episode. Crew members treated it like a secret canvas for inside jokes, doodles, and funny messages. Sometimes it referenced the plot. Other times, it was just random humor meant to entertain the cast. The habit began when a crew member doodled a funny sketch during rehearsal, and the director decided to keep it. From then on, it became a hidden Easter egg. In one episode, it said, "Joey, call your agent," while in another, it featured a cartoon chicken. Fans later created entire websites to document every doodle across all 10 seasons. It became a subtle signature of Friends, a small detail that made the fictional world feel alive. The Magna Doodle reminded viewers that laughter lived even in the background, where little secrets were waiting to be found. It is one of those small touches that made the show endlessly rewatchable, a gift from the crew to anyone observant enough to catch it. Chandler Bing's sarcasm was legendary, but the one thing that embarrassed him more than anything was his middle name. In the episode, The One with Rachel's Date, fans finally learned it: Muriel. The reveal caused the audience to erupt in laughter, and it became an instant in-joke. The writers only mentioned it once, but that was enough for fans to run with it for years. Chandler's personality, awkward, self-deprecating, and quick-witted, made the name fit perfectly. It was the kind of quirky detail that defined Friends' humor: simple, specific, and unexpectedly funny. Matthew Perry leaned into the embarrassment in later interviews, joking that he could not have played a man with a less cool name. Fans loved how the reveal humanized Chandler even more. Beneath his jokes and defensive humor, he was just a guy trying to hide his own awkwardness. That one small moment, just a middle name, added depth to a character people already adored. It is proof that sometimes one line can become a defining piece of sitcom history. Even though Friends is famous for capturing the New York City lifestyle, not a single frame was filmed there. The show was entirely produced on Stage 25 at Warner Bros. Studios in Burbank, California. The cast never lived in New York during production, though the city's energy shaped the show's design and tone. The exterior shots, like the famous apartment building and Central Perk's street corner, were stock footage and purpose-built facades. To keep the illusion alive, set designers obsessed over details, fire escapes, brick walls, and even the sound of traffic layered into the background. When tourists visit New York, many still look for Central Perk, only to discover it was never real, just movie magic. Yet somehow, the fake New York felt more familiar than the real one. That mix of authenticity and imagination gave Friends its charm. The show may have been filmed in Los Angeles, but it made everyone feel like they were living in Manhattan, hanging out with their own group of friends just around the corner. When Friends aired its two-part episode, the one after the Super Bowl, in 1996, it broke records no sitcom has touched since. Over 52 million people tuned in, making it the most watched episode of the series and one of the most viewed television events of the decade. The special aired directly after the Super Bowl, giving it a prime audience already in front of their screens. To make the most of the moment, the producers loaded the episode with big-name guest stars, Julia Roberts, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Brooke Shields among them. Julia Roberts played Susie Moss, a former classmate of Chandler's with an unforgettable revenge plot. The mix of star power and classic Friends humor turned the night into television gold. Behind the scenes, the cast admitted to feeling nervous performing in front of such massive anticipation. But the episode captured everything that made Friends special: celebrity fun, fast-paced jokes, and genuine chemistry. Even today, no streaming milestone has replaced that kind of shared live moment. 52 million people laughing together, that is something modern television rarely sees anymore. When Courtney Cox became pregnant during the final season, it created a challenge for the writers. Monica and Chandler's storyline had established that they could not conceive, so the show could not simply write in her pregnancy. Instead, the costume team got creative. Cox wore layers of loose-fitting sweaters, aprons, and strategically placed props to conceal her growing baby bump. The directors also framed shots carefully, using close-ups and set pieces like kitchen counters to hide her stomach. It was a logistical puzzle that the crew handled so smoothly most viewers never noticed. Ironically, Monica and Chandler's story about adoption was filmed just as Cox and her husband were expecting their first child in real life. Off-screen joy and on-screen struggle collided in a bittersweet way that mirrored the show's blend of comedy and heart. When fans rewatch those final episodes, knowing the truth adds a whole new layer of meaning. Behind the jokes and the hugs, a real-life happy ending was quietly unfolding just out of frame. When Tom Selleck first appeared on Friends as Dr. Richard Burke, Monica's older, charming boyfriend, the live studio audience went absolutely wild. Every time he walked through the door, production had to pause because the applause and cheers were so loud that no one could hear the dialogue. The reaction was not just about his famous mustache or movie star aura, it was the excitement of seeing a television icon step into this already beloved world. Selleck's calm, collected energy made him stand out among the more chaotic personalities in the group. He was older, confident, and completely unbothered by the constant silliness around him. Audiences adored how he balanced Monica's intensity with quiet maturity, and their unlikely relationship gave the show one of its most heartfelt storylines. Behind the scenes, the cast also admired Selleck. Matthew Perry once said that even the crew got starstruck whenever Tom was on set. His presence added weight to every episode he appeared in, And even years later, reruns still get a little spark when Richard walks into the frame. Though Monica eventually found her forever partner in Chandler, fans never forgot the warmth, respect, and heartbreak of her relationship with Richard. He was more than just a guest star. He was part of the Friends legacy, the grown-up love story that made viewers cheer and sigh at the same time. The bizarre white dog statue that Joey proudly displayed after his soap opera success was not a random prop. It actually belonged to Jennifer Aniston. When production was decorating Joey and Chandler's apartment for the storyline where Joey finally made it, Aniston offered to lend her own oversized ceramic greyhound as a playful touch. The odd-looking dog had been a personal housewarming gift from a friend when she first moved into her Los Angeles apartment. The prop team thought it perfectly captured Joey's new money vibe, flashy, weird, and just a little bit tacky. Once it appeared on set, the crew could not stop laughing at how perfectly it fit. Over time, the white dog became one of those quirky background pieces that fans loved spotting in later episodes. It even survived multiple set redesigns, staying in Joey's apartment as his unofficial roommate. When the series wrapped, the crew returned it to Aniston, who reportedly kept it for years as a memento of her time on the show. The fact that something from her real life became part of Friends added another layer of authenticity to the world they built. It symbolized what the show did best, turning everyday objects, friendships, and even odd decorations into television history. One actor's strange piece of home decor ended up as one of the show's most recognizable props, proving that sometimes personal touches make the biggest impression. When Friends ended in 2004, it was more than the close of a show. It was the end of an era. The final scene had aired, the hugs were real, and the tears from the cast and crew flowed freely. But what many fans do not realize is that after wrapping the finale, the production team dismantled the entire Central Perk set. The reason? They wanted to preserve its legacy rather than see it reused or recreated. The show's creators, Marta Kaufman and David Crane, agreed that Friends should remain a singular experience, untouched by spin-offs or unnecessary reboots. Central Perk had been a second home for both the characters and the audience, a place where laughter, heartbreak, and countless cups of coffee shaped a decade of television. Taking it apart was a symbolic act, a way of saying goodbye. Cast members took keepsakes with them. The iconic couch went to the Warner Brothers studio tour, while smaller items were gifted to crew members. The rest was archived or carefully dismantled piece by piece. It was an emotional day on set. Lisa Kudrow later said that walking off the Central Perk floor for the last time felt like leaving a real apartment where you had lived for 10 years. Destroying the set was not about erasing the past. It was about protecting it, ensuring Friends would always remain frozen in the perfect form people loved. If you ever find yourself wandering through the West Village in New York City, you can actually stand in front of the Friends apartment. The building used for exterior shots sits on the corner of Bedford and Grove Streets, and fans from around the world still visit it to snap photos. It looks almost exactly like the one you see in the show, complete with red brick walls, green window frames, and a corner storefront where Central Perk would have been. But there is one surprising truth. There was never a real coffeehouse there. The ground floor has always been an ordinary restaurant space, changing tenants over the years. Central Perk was entirely built on a soundstage in Los Angeles, recreated down to the smallest detail of the supposed New York cafe. Yet that has not stopped the building from becoming a global pop culture landmark. Tour buses stop daily, and fans leave notes, quotes, or even little coffee cups on the sidewalk as tributes. Some travelers even admit to crying when they finally see it in person. Locals have grown used to the daily crowd, though some confess that it still feels surreal to live above one of the most famous fake apartments in history. That real building in Manhattan became a physical connection to a world that existed only on television, a reminder that even fiction can leave a very real mark on a city. Behind the laughter and the perfect comic timing, Matthew Perry's time on Friends was not always easy. During the height of the show's fame, he struggled with addiction and went to rehab multiple times while filming. The producers and his co-stars quietly adjusted to support him, rewriting scripts or rescheduling filming days when he needed time off. Some episodes were subtly reworked to minimize his screen time, while others were shot out of order so Perry could continue his treatment. Despite his personal struggles, he always showed up ready to deliver sharp, unforgettable performances. His wit and timing never wavered on camera, even when he was facing battles off-screen. The cast stood by him with fierce loyalty. Lisa Kudrow once said, "We were never 6 actors. We were 6 people taking care of each other." The writers avoided making jokes that might touch on his weight fluctuations or absences, respecting his privacy while keeping the tone of the show intact. In later interviews, Perry was open about his recovery journey, saying he wanted his legacy to be helping others who faced similar challenges. Looking back, it is remarkable how Friends managed to remain consistently joyful during those hard times. The laughter was real, but so was the compassion behind it. Perry's courage, both on and off the set, added a deeper layer to his already beloved character. His story reminded everyone that even in comedy, humanity matters most. So before you grab another cup of coffee, tell us which Friends fact surprised you most, then hit like, tap subscribe, and drop your thoughts below so we can keep reliving the laughter, love, and weirdness of the 1990s together.